Welcome, Descendants! I've been taking a gaming break from EVE Online for the past few months, trying out a looter-shooter that released last July called the First Descendant. After Starfield didn't really retain my interest, I felt the need to try something completely different. The gameplay in the First Descendant is thunderous and quite fun. Every weapon feels slightly different, with its own action and recoil. Every playable character has their own playstyle and abilities, with some of them just being wildly different. Bunny, for example, she has a speed of light ability that allows her to sprint super fast, and can discharge electricity in bursts, dealing damage based on her speed. The music really sets the vibe too, changing based on the character you're playing. And I personally don't even think Bunny is the coolest. The stealth-focused Sharon fits my playstyle perfectly. Suffice to say, I've been enjoying the game and finding myself invested in the potential that the future might hold. The studio has been communicating with the player base with monthly live YouTube sessions, offering details on what's to come. Where the game really shines is the art direction, character design, and thunderous gameplay. It's a bit more of a mixed bag when it comes to storyline and content variety. Portions of the main story are decent, other portions are just kind of, wonky. It's been a while since I played through it, but I can recall some of the NPCs being overly chatty without really saying much. And in the early map zones, loads of missions have generic goals like obtain the ancestors' data.
Descendant, unfortunately none of the ancestors' data remains in this terminal.
The dialogue often seems to suggest another character is there with you on the battlefield, but they're always just a disembodied voice guiding you through the mission.
We have to remove the barrier to enter the gate. I'll be the brains, you be the muscle.
Great. I'll go in first and scope out the area. To remove the barrier, I guess we have to find the targets connected to it and eliminate them, right?
Thankfully, most of the voice actors do a pretty good job of capturing the spirit of their character, and I personally felt like the story improved as you approach the final map zones. Luna was one of my favorites. The voice actors seemed to be having a lot of fun with the situation.
Footsteps I could hear. It was you! I'm so glad. I couldn't concentrate on anything because of the all this.
Though one thing that got weird at the end, I chose to play through the entire campaign on my starting character, rather than switching to Bunny like they seemed to expect. If you do what I did, you end up talking to an NPC clone of yourself in the final map area.
I think they noticed we stole the data. They're all heading to your position.
The biggest complaint I've seen is with content variety. I've only been playing since the beginning of December, so I haven't hit that wall as hard as players who started back in July. But I can see where they're coming from. There are 8 main map zones, each with up to 5 subzones and 2 main dungeons. Map zones look gorgeous, but don't feel very alive until you activate a mission beacon. The 16 dungeons get repurposed for additional game modes. So you get a certain amount of replayability, but at some point I can see getting burned out on it. The game is free to play, with the option to either pay for immediate access to new playable characters, or fall back on a hefty grind to find all the materials for them. Beyond that, the game operates on a seasonal basis, where some sort of new content will release with each season. In Season 2, they added a new dynamic dungeon called the Void Vessel. And then a few weeks later, a series of 30 smaller dungeons called the Void Erosion Purge. Some people seem to be having a lot of fun with these Purge dungeons, but I was a little disappointed because there's no story attached to them at all. To me, they feel like just a mess of hectic encounters with the goal of acquiring these weapon core items to enhance your weapons. And speaking of the recent weapon core content added to the game, it does have me a little worried that the game will continue on a path of what I'll call exponential power creep. The difference in how strong a character gets as they progress is already quite vast. You can go from pitched boss battles taking 5 to 10 minutes up to killing them with a single shot. I haven't touched weapon cores yet, because I want to see how far I can go in the new Void Erosion Purge dungeons without them. But from what I've seen from other content creators, the DPS gain of a fully cored up weapon is a full order of magnitude higher, which makes even endgame boss clears trivial. So whenever they release new content, they'll be constantly faced with decisions on how to balance accessibility for younger players with challenge for endgame players. I hope the developers realize that with each new season, they should be looking to onboard new players just as much as satisfy existing players. A big surprise for me is the lack of any kind of in-game guilds and the simplistic matchmaking for groups. It's pretty much up to each person to find other like-minded players. Most of the content creators for the First Descendant are focused on zerging towards uber-powerful endgame builds, where they kill bosses as quickly as possible. This is the exact opposite of the way I like to play games, so I've found myself exclusively playing the game solo. The elephant in the room with the First Descendant is the studio's choice of where to allocate their resources. They tend to make their money by selling cosmetic items, primarily costumes for characters, and they are not at all shy to offer very revealing outfits for the female characters. At the end of the day, nothing you see in the game goes beyond what you'll see in real life by visiting a beach. But I do find myself wondering how things could be if they put the same level of resources and enthusiasm into content variety and storyline as they do for their female character designs. For the short term, I've been enjoying the game enough to start creating a new player guide and compendium over on the gaming section of my website. You can check it out over at RileyEntertainment.com. As of this video release, it includes tables listing all the most relevant stats for playable characters and weapons. All the other guide websites I've come across tend to put stats for each character or weapon on their own page, making it hard to do a proper comparison. Not to mention they're all littered with ads and trackers, while my website has none of this nonsense. I had originally anticipated a shared focus with Starfield, but my interest in that game really took a nosedive after a few months of play. At some point, I may make a video where I vent about the untapped potential of Starfield. But until then, this channel will be sharing focus between EVE Online and the First Descendant. I do want to get back to EVE for my regular viewers. I still owe you all the final part of my hacking sites guide, and then I'll likely get started on the Caldari Cosmos guide. Shorter term, while I'm still enjoying the First Descendant, I plan to put together a new player video guide to help onboard newer players. So stay tuned to Riley Entertainment for either the First Descendant or EVE Online. And smash that like button if you enjoy my content.